Hey guys, just going to do a quick follow-up video to Monday's video, which is about the Dunkirk Halt order theory that I've come up with. If you haven't seen it, link in the description and on the screen now. Brilliant feedback, literally brilliant. People were saying this video in theory is brilliant. I think everybody, mostly everyone, liked the video regardless of whether you agreed or not, which is great to see. Lots of discussion back and forth. Obviously some people weren't convinced, some people were counter-arguing, and there was obviously that small faction that hate everything I say. But what I did see was a lot of people saying the same sort of thing as a counter-argument to the theory. And what I quickly realised was that I need to do a quick follow-up video, because now these weren't the only counter-arguments, but I've chosen the top 5 most common that I saw, which I don't think really stand up to scrutiny. So I'm going to tackle these 5 today, and then we can move on to maybe some of the more difficult ones later on. So without further ado, I've got the 5 on my phone here. So common counter-argument number 1. Okay, so if the idea was to keep Britain in the war in order to trick Stalin, why then bomb Britain, right? And also, why then sink her ships? Because wouldn't that convince Britain to leave the war or peace out, etc.? My argument to this would be no, because Hitler wants to remain at war with Britain in order to convince Stalin that he's at war with Britain and thus won't go on a second front. So if he doesn't show willing against Britain, right? If he doesn't bomb Britain, if he doesn't sink her ships, then Stalin will be like, "Are you really at war? Really?" So I think he has to show willing. He has to do something to Britain. He can't just be like, "Yeah, we're definitely still at war, definitely." Like, he has to actually do something. So I think that's a quick counter argument to that. Common counter argument number 2, though, which goes a bit further than this. Okay. If the idea was to keep Britain in the war in order to go to the Soviet Union, then surely it wouldn't make sense to lose the experienced Luftwaffe pilots, lose some planes, and use up a lot of fuel during the Battle of Britain, right? When all of that could be saved for the Soviet Union and Operation Barbarossa. Again, I think this misses one of the points, which is that Hitler thought that the Soviet Union would collapse in a matter of days, well, weeks. He thought that the Soviet Union would collapse in like 2 months or something like that. So, and he actually says, if we kick the door in, the whole thing will come down. So he thought the Soviet Union would collapse regardless. So I think, yeah, it makes sense to lose a few pilots, a few planes, and a bit of fuel, because let's not forget, the fuel crisis only really becomes a major problem in the October-November time, roughly speaking. So if Barbarossa happens in June, let's say July, August, September maybe, like, he thought it would be over by the time the fuel crisis really became a problem. So I think he thought, well, we can lose some fuel and planes and pilots. It's not going to matter because the Soviet Union's so weak anyway, supposedly. It will be a pushover. And I think that's why. So that's number 2. Number 3 for the common counter-arguments. Wouldn't it be better to just destroy the British, either army and or get them to peace out, which would then lift the blockade, and that would then make Barbarossa easier? Again, Hitler thinks that the Soviet Union will just collapse in a matter of weeks, so Barbarossa is easy, right? In Hitler's mind in 1940, Barbarossa is going to be an easy pushover, so it makes sense that he wouldn't think, yeah, okay, we don't need the blockade to, be over because we're going to get the land and resources of the East anyway. So it doesn't make sense to lift the blockade. It makes more sense, actually, if we trick Stalin, we're going to take the land and resources of the East that we need anyway. We won't need the blockade to be lifted. And part 2 to this response would be, also, Hitler doesn't believe in trade anyway. We know from his pre-war theories, Mein Kampf, which is behind me, and his second book, etc., Hitler doesn't believe in trade. He believes in autarky. Autarky is the idea that self-sufficiency, which is why he's going east in the first place. So once he takes the resources of the East, he's not going to be caring about the trade anyway. I think he says at one point somewhere that once he's taken the Soviet Union or parts of the Soviet Union, the only thing he'll have to import will be coffee. And otherwise they'd be completely self-sufficient. And it's more or less true to some extent, sort of. So the war in the East will solve the problem of the British blockade. So I think that's the way he's thinking about it. So it doesn't make sense in the 1940 period to end the blockade then. It makes sense to end it maybe later. But Hitler doesn't believe in trade anyway. Common counter-argument number 4. The theory, some people said that the theory is too complicated. Even though Stalin actually believed it. So let me just explain this. In 1941, we know that Stalin, or at least there's evidence to support the idea that Stalin doesn't think Hitler will attack him because Britain is still at war, and Hitler wouldn't risk a two-front war. We kind of, well, as far as we're aware, the evidence seems to support that. The only question is, the question isn't, is that actually true? The question is, can it be applied to Dunkirk? So it works in 1941, and that's why Stalin is surprised. And that is a genuine theory, so that sense is not complicated. The issue is, can it be applied to Dunkirk? Right? Because this is the thing, I came up with this theory, I'm going to say independently, because I don't know if anyone else has actually said this theory before, but I was reading about the Hess affair, found out about this two-front war, Stalin is surprised, and was like, wait, if that's the case, then that makes sense then, about Dunkirk. It can be applied to Dunkirk, or at least in theory, it could be applied to Dunkirk. That's how I came up with the theory, and that's when I presented it to you. So the theory itself, in terms of the two-front war thing, is a real thing. It's just a question of, can it be applied to Dunkirk? I think currently, yes, it can be, although there's counter-arguments, we need to find out. And I also want to point out again, I'm not fully committed to this theory. I'm just saying it's a theory, we need to test it, we need to look at the evidence, etc, etc. And this is why I'm making this video, to go back and forth. History lies in the heart of the debate, after all. So we'll see if this theory holds up. But the point is, currently, it makes sense. We'll just need to see if it holds up. But the theory's not complicated, it's actually realistic. It's just a question of, does it apply to Dunkirk? That is the central question here. And common counter-argument number 5. Okay, why don't... So this is what the people said. Okay, why doesn't Hitler just destroy the British army, then reject the British peace offers? Because if the British had offered a peace deal that was too good to be true, Hitler couldn't say no to it. So imagine it this way, if Britain lost her army and was like, right, we give in completely, you can take British Isles, you can take Canada, let's say, you can have the empire, and Hitler's like, no, you need to keep fighting, please. Like, it won't make sense. Or more realistically, if Britain was just like, all right, we've lost our army, we can't fight you anymore, so what we're going to do is we're just going to peace out. You, Mr. Hitler, can keep continental Europe, we'll just stay on the British Isles and whatever else, and have a nice day. And Hitler's like, no, you need to keep fighting. Like, it's not going to work. It's going to be unpopular at home, on the home front. People are like, what? Why has he done that? And then Stalin will be like, wait a second, hold on, right? So I don't think Hitler could literally do that, because if Britain offered such a good peace deal, he'd be stupid to take it, to not take it. And I think Stalin would be very suspicious at that point. So I don't think these counter-arguments really work. But let's see what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.